What is up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another live stream. My name's Lewis, also known as MrCameraJunkie, where I remind you to upgrade your skills before your gear. Okay, music should be good there. And with that being said, as always, welcome to the live stream. Today is episode number 76. No, yeah, right? No, 77. 76 was last week. I'm looking at my screen and nothing's actually going because we're supposed to be here. There we go. That looks more like normal. How are we doing today? Today is Saturday, May 21st. And today we're going to be talking about Canon cameras. And Canon seems to have a rumor running around there that they're going to be dropping a couple of new camera bodies. And they are of the APS-C variety. So with that being said, let me go ahead and check the chat real quick before I get things started, before I start ranting about cameras. Okay, so where am I here? All right, we have Paul the moderator. Mr. Moderator, how are you doing, sir? Welcome. Right behind him, we have Randy saying hello. And Carlos, Mr. Motivated Minds, is hanging out here saying hello to everyone. And we also have Marga saying hello to me and to everyone here in chat. And if you're new here and it's your first time, oh, we also got John hanging in there. How you doing, John? Saying hello to me and the crew. Like I was just going to say, if it's your first time here and you want to get the Camera Junkie crew welcome, make sure that just say hello in the chat so that we can get to know you better, including myself. Dr. Omar Haddad saying hello to me and to everyone. How are you doing, sir? There we go. All right. And with that being said, we're going to get started. This is actually a pretty interesting and good type of announcement that we are expecting. Now, what I'm talking about today still categorizes itself as rumors because nothing is set in stone. Especially if you've been following along with the live streams, you would know that, how could I say, the chip shortages and so many different aspects of what's going on in the world is really putting a deterrent on the things that are available. For example, I was lucky enough to get one of the newer Mac computers when they come out, but if you were to try to actually get that computer today, what would actually end up happening is that you would be waiting 3 to 4 months because everything is scarce. And just to throw this out there, the factories that were available to make the products that we want to get in China, in all of these like distinct places, they were working off of a different model where the employees that were allowed to stay in the factories to work actually were not permitted to go home. All right, and you can see Mr. Aiden is hanging out, getting into his toys. Let's check the Aiden cam real quick. All right. Oh, that is looking right at the ground. And there he is. All right. So the Aiden cam as he hangs out and plays with his toys. So going back to it, the employees that were working in these factories that were actually still being able to produce goods were actually living in this like closed loop system because of the lockdowns and trying to keep everything in base. So they weren't allowed to actually visit their families. And I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, there was like a breakout at a lot of these factories. The employees have had enough and they just wanted out, that they basically stampeded outside of these factories that were producing all of these goods. And because of it, now a lot of things have taken a halt, including, you know, Mac computers, cars have been backed up for years already, and there's a overstock of vehicles that are just waiting to get computer chips so they'll be able to be used. A lot of companies are even thinking about selling off these vehicles right now with the missing chips, and like making it a factory recall so that when they are available, the clients could bring the vehicles back in to apply like the last few features, some of them being like GPS, you know, not things that are keeping the vehicle completely from being non-functional, but not enough to sell the entire package. So that's where we're at in like the bigger view type of picture. That's where we're at right now. And with that being said, everything that we're trying to get out is taking a lot longer, and I just want to emphasize that one, especially when it comes to rumors. We are expecting an announcement on the 24th, in just about 3 days from today, and that is gonna really let us know what we should be getting in the coming months. With that being said, what's rumored to come out is the new R7 and the new R10 camera bodies from the Canon side, utilizing the RF mount. Now, if you're not familiar, the RF mount is Canon's newest mount that they transitioned to from the EF and the EFS, which the EFS was the APS-C standard for Canon lenses. And they moved over to the RF lens, which is, I believe, like 6 millimeters wider, allowing easier and better lenses to be able to be mounted. A variety of adaptation is possible because of the bigger size mount. With that being said, there was no APS-C equivalent or cameras that were available for this new mount until the rumor that's coming out now. With that being said, the rumor, what we're expecting is a Canon R7, and the R7 is basically looking to be a successor to the Canon EOS 7D or the 7D Mark II. Now, if any of you are photographers were dealing with those cameras are not really like that old when you look into it. The Canon EOS 7D Mark II was released in 2014, meaning as of right now, that's an 8-year-old camera. That just lets you know the state of the camera companies and where they were at that moment, that they were still pushing a DSLR camera when Sony and other companies were already completely, engulfed into the mirrorless side. It took Canon a while to bring their tech up to date, but once they did, what they actually came out was with pretty good product. And because Canon always starts as a lens company, the cameras tend to trickle behind the actual production or quality of their actual glass or lenses. So there was already plenty of amazing lenses available for the RF full frame series, like the 50 1.2, the 85 1.4, so many. And that's where they were until hypothetically 3 days from now. What we're hoping for is that this Canon EOS R7, let me just go over some of the specs. It's rumored to have a 32.5 megapixel sensor, meaning high density. If it were to be a full frame camera, it would be something of equivalent of a 75 or an 80 megapixel sensor if it were to be the size of a full frame. But because it's APS-C and it's smaller, you're condensing more megapixels, which is very good if you're into sports photography or if you're into birding, something where you can attach a lens, because the smaller sensor actually applies a 1.6 crop factor, or a 1.6 times magnification on all of the photos or all of the lenses that you'd be using on it. So if it was a 400 millimeter lens that you were using, you're gonna get a 1.6 times boost to the 400, and it will be something more equivalent to a 600 millimeter lens. So these are the advantages. That plus that it was also rumored that it's going to be backside illuminated, which is something that I also mention here a lot, BSI. The backside illumination allows for faster and cleaner readouts of all of the images. And for that is why this camera, the R7, is rumored to be shooting at 15 frames per second mechanical and also 30 frames per second electronically, which is quite a feat to have a camera being able to shoot 30 frames per second in still frames And if we can get a high quality without what we consider calling rolling shutter, meaning that the sensor readout is fast enough to get you a good image without any warping, this camera could be really legendary, like game changing for a lot of people. Then when it comes to the memory card slots, we're dealing with two UHS 2 slots, meaning it's gonna give you a step up into the write speeds to the cards, and with those special write speeds or faster write speeds to the card is gonna be able to wear less on your buffer, allowing you to take even more shots in continuous form without maxing out your camera before you're not able, because you filled up your buffer memory. Next, we also have that it's rumored to have a 4K 60 mode, which is awesome because 4K 60 is the legitimate next level up when it comes to video format. So having 4K looks great, but if you can get 4K 60 frames per second, this just, yeah, to be able to slow down 4K on an APS-C camera, even 50% or a quarter of the regular speed is going to be very big. It also is going to have 1080 at 120, so that kind of coincides. But one of the biggest things, that though it's going to have 4K 60 and 1080 120, it's also going to have C-Log 3, and C-Log 3 is going to allow you to get the flat profile. So when it comes to video, this is going to be a very, very good package. And I would have to say I owned the Canon EOS 7D Mark I, and I was able to get really good video. Some of my first videos on this channel were made with that camera when I owned it. So when it comes to the video quality, it also has to do with the lenses that you have in front of them. And for that, let me talk a little bit, because Canon is also rumored to be coming out with 2 RFS lenses, meaning that they are designed for the RF mount but are designed for an APS-C size sensor. So if I don't know exactly how Canon is actually going to apply this, but Sony has something that we call the one mount to rule them all, right? The one mount system, meaning that your camera, whether it's APS-C or it's full frame, it's going to use the same exact mount. So the advantage of that is that it allows me to use full frame lenses on my APS-C cameras to get that extra reach. What it also allows is that if I were to take an APS-C lens and put it on my full frame camera, it will also adapt just the same way and also regulate itself, so to speak, where it will recognize that it doesn't have the entire image sensor being covered, and for that reason it will actually adjust itself to use the space that the lens is capable to cover. That will actively make any full frame camera in the Sony system a APS-C camera as soon as you attach the lens to it. So here's to hoping, but I wouldn't see that Canon would do anything different. Now that they're actually unifying the APS or the RF mount from the APS-C to the full frame, these new lenses that I'm going to mention, you should be able to have the ability to put them on your existing Canon cameras just the same, and have the camera recognize that it's a different type of lens, it's an EFS, and modify itself accordingly. So here's to that. If that goes, the lenses that I'm talking about, the first one is an 18mm to 45, f4.5 to 6.3 IS STM, so that is image stabilized and stepper motors for it, so nothing out of this world, but sticking to true Canon fashion, their optics are good. So I wouldn't see the actual need in increasing so much for these optics. What I do see is that this falls in line to their EFS line, so this is just going to carry over. And what I mean is that you're going to get lesser quality build product, so to speak. Like, you're not going to get metal lenses, you're going to get lighter plastic lenses that could feel a bit cheaper, but I digress because we don't know exactly what they're going to look like, but I doubt that they're going to be like metal framed and things like that. They're designed to be more budget and designed to be made with these cameras. So an 18 to 45 should be giving you an equivalent with Canon of like a 32 millimeter to, I believe, 65, if my math is correct. The second lens that is coming with these lenses is more applied to the second camera body that is also to be announced, which is excuse me, the Canon EOS R10. Now, the biggest difference that I'm seeing as far as the specs that I got here between the R7 and the R10 has to do with basically a lot. The biggest one is the one that I was kind of like holding off on, is the in-body image stabilization, or IBIS. So on top of these lenses being image stabilized, IS, this EOS R7 also has in-body stabilization like their higher end Canon cameras, the EOS R3, so on and so forth. With that being said, I really see that this could be like a dominant camera, because Canon's image stabilization should work substantially better in the APS-C form, because the APS-C form is just tends to work better. It just has more space to move around and adjust for, you know, micro vibrations in these bigger bodies. The Canon EOS R10 is specified to have a 24.2 megapixel sensor, which is equivalent to what you're looking at right now from my Sony cameras. This is like a 24.2 megapixel camera or sensor, and the frames per second when it comes to shooting photography on the R10 are bogged down a slight bit. Now, you're still going to get the two USH2 memory card slots, so that's going to be good when it comes to filling up your buffer, because your camera could offload the images a lot faster. But it's not going to have the image stabilization in body, so it's not going to have the IBIS as it's rumored, and it also is not going to have like those special video codecs like the S-Log3 with all the extra like bells and whistles. So it's going to be more of a entry level, and I think the EOS R10 is kind of going to be like the Canon Rebel series. It's going to be their entry level camera. Where they're going to price this at is where that's all up in the air. We're trying to figure that out, but these cameras even have someone like me pretty excited, because I'm kind of an APS-C guy, and Canon cameras, when it comes to sports photography, they have always been great, especially the 7 series line of cameras. So having an EOS R7, and I guess just having the 7 in the name, kind of brings back a little bit of that nostalgia in, you know, getting great photography shots, get great birding shots and action shots, because it's a lot less room that you have to work on or kind of have the sensor read out when you're dealing with a smaller physical size. So these sensors usually tend to be twice as fast as full frame, because they have to cover half the distance when it comes to opening and closing shutters and all the technical aspects that it has to do with. So those are the biggest differences between the camera bodies that I've noticed. And then the other lens is also an 18 to 150 millimeters, f3.5 to 6.3 IS STM. So these are going to be, you know, the STM, the stepper motors, are good for video as well, because they're silent. They're not the fastest as far as, you know, the technology goes, but what the stepper motor means is kind of like you will see the increments of your focus stepping in and out as it's acquiring focus. Now you can get rid of that, you know, like jitteriness through software, and I've noticed that some of these cameras actually will step the autofocus like that fast for like while you're not recording or while you're doing photography. But as soon as you actually hit record on the camera, these are, you know, pretty smart devices. They understand that we're not going to be jumping in focus when it comes to doing video, so it'll slow down the motors to give you a softer, you know, focus push and pull. The one thing that I have not been able to get information on is like the autofocus, like dual pixel, or however, I've heard some rumors of quad pixel, which I think is just like a wordplay. But regardless, I haven't really gotten too much information on that side to see if that's a type of autofocus, but I don't see why they would try to drop the ball when it comes to autofocus. I think they're doing something really good with these cameras, and this could be a whole new wave of what we're always talking about, content creation and things like that. Because if they rival anything of like the GH6 that just came out recently when it comes to specs, image quality, and image stabilization, this camera could do very well, especially on the way that they price it. So depending on how they price it is gonna be, you know, what's gonna determine how. Well, that and the availability. So let me be clear. The price of it is one thing, but we also have to check to see what's going to be the actual availability of this camera before we can see. But from what I'm seeing, I'm seeing a lot of good potential. A couple of good lenses, 18 to 45 and an 18 to 150. Both image stabilized, and a couple of camera bodies to bring everything together. Now, the one negative that I would have to say about this is that this kind of just puts the line in the sand, and I don't see where they're going with EFS lenses. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. With EFM lenses, because Canon has had the EFM mount, and for a while now we've been saying like nothing has come out, and that maybe like they have abandoned that line altogether. And just as of last year, we hear that they're actually now allowing third party to make lenses for EFS, and now you can find the Sigma Trio, the very famous 16mm, 30 and 56mm, adapted to the EFM lens mount. And with that, now we were like expecting like, hey, maybe they're not giving up. Let's see what they come up with as far as new lenses or higher quality lenses for that system. But with this move to the RFS mount or lenses, is just lets you know that they've moved on. The best that you're going to be able to get in the EFM is the entry level lenses that they have, the Sigma Trio, or to get an adapter. To get the adapter that then effectively removes the EFM lens and makes it an EF lens or an EFS, and then you're able to use the entire history of amazing lenses that Canon has for all of their EF or EFS lens mounts. So those are still great cameras depending on what you're doing. When it comes to video is where these newer cameras really jump the older cameras leaps and bounds, because they are designed for it. You know, one of the biggest flaws of the older cameras is that they were all bogged down by that 29-59 limit of the time recording. And now all of the newer cameras are really not dealing with that. They're all dealing with higher frame rates and higher bit rates. What I'm hoping is for 10-bit video in APS-C to be hitting us soon. And people are like, oh, that's like, it's not impossible. That's just a codec, right? So we need to, I'm going to be an advocate for that, because if I can get 10-bit color out of a simple APS-C camera like such, I will choose that 100 times over a full frame camera that can do the same thing for my certain needs. Now, I always say it depends on the situation. So if I were to get contracted tomorrow to do a commercial shoot, I would also know that in my, my invoice or my quote being put in there, I'm going to put the rental of the equipment that I'm going to need to get that done. But that doesn't mean that I need to go purchase a red camera if I ever needed to rent it for a weekend shoot, because I could rent it and then get all of the good high quality footage, bring it back to my computer, and my system here is ready to go to take on any editing challenge. So having the understanding of what my needs are and what I need them to have met, like to have an A6100 with 10-bit to get even better color and control of what I'm doing here with my live streams, that would be it. And that would be kind of like the goal, the dream, so to speak, for me with APS-C. So I'm now gonna love to hear what you have to say about these cameras. If you have any questions, please put a Q in front of it so that I can get to that. And I'm gonna go ahead and start going through the chat. Dr. Omar asked me, how am I doing? Well, let me show you. I needed that sip of coffee. Like, And with that being said, I'm doing great. Coffee, much, much better. Sly is in the house. How you doing, Sly? Saying happy Saturday to the crew and everyone. Hope is doing well. We are, and thank you for stopping by. Okay, so Paul's saying hi to Dr. Omar and to Sly. Everyone's saying hello. Sly is saying hi to Paul and Randy. Scott Rogers is in the house saying hello to everyone in the crew. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Miss Allen saying hello. How are you doing? All the way from Japan, right? I believe you're clocking in from Japan, so yeah, I forgot the time zone, man. I know you told me last time and just couldn't put it together right now, but I'll get to it. All right. So Sly says, too many lens mounts to get an adapter. They change around 200. I love Canon, but they should make an adapter more affordable if they want to play lens games. That's very interesting. I did think that the lens was just a bit pricey when you're asking someone to use a older technology on a newer camera. Like, I think that adapter coming from Canon and just the basic adapter should have been more like around $100. But the crazy thing that Canon did, because they had all the extra space with that lens mount, is that they made like 4 different lens mounts for the EF or EFS lenses. Now, one of the things that I never got to play with, but still intrigues me till today, is one of the adapters that they came out with that has the ability for you to drop in filters. So there are lots of lenses that, because they have a wide angle aspect view and they have a bulbous lens that kind of just protrudes and extends, you don't have the ability to put like a variety of different filters, whether it's a polarized filter or a natural density filter, just anything, pro mist filter. Any of those filters are not available for these big wide angle bulbous lenses because you just can't fit them, right? You can't make, you'd be talking about a filter the size of a frisbee. So they designed a small spot at the back of the lens where all the light converges to then have the ability to drop in a filter there, cut some out, whether it's neutral density, slide it behind in between the sensor and the lens itself, and get the same type of neutral density, pro mist, so on and so forth, filters on their video feeds without and being able to use it on a big bulbous lens. So with that type of mentality, Canon took the empty space where traditionally you would have your reflex mirror on a DSLR, and that flange distance, they said, we have a lot of space to play with. So now any lens that you can adapt EF to that adapter, you have an active CPL, which is a circular polarized filter for those who are not familiar, and D filter, neutral density, or kind of like sunglasses for your lenses to get correct exposure. A variety of different, even colors, anything that you can drop into this little slot that now exists between your EF/EFS lenses and your sensor. So that was one of the things that really intrigued me the most, because I was like, that could be a game changer, because it gives you the ability to have in a actual like cinema type neutral density, system that's a lot easier than having a big matte box and getting wide angle. And even if you are using APS-C, or how we like to call in the film, the Super 35, if you're using that type of format for the video film that you're creating, then you have the ability to get correct exposure even though you're using an ultra wide angle, to kind of counteract the 1.5 or 1.6 crop factor that you're getting with Super 35. Hey, look, Paul said the same thing. Sly, like, that's like the Sony one mount. That's exactly what I had mentioned earlier today, that Sony, all of the lenses fit. And that's to go to show you. Check this out right here. Boom. We're going to do the coffee shot. So look at that, the coffee shot. But this is my overhead camera. And right here, I am actually using my full frame, because, India Delgado, shout out, if you're watching this, you're talking about overkill when it comes to overhead cameras. I have a Sony. I'm just laughing because I'm like, I had to say this loud. Okay, I have a Sony Alpha 7 R, right? Mark II, right? This is the Mark II, yeah. A 42.2 megapixel camera shooting 4K as my overhead camera. But because I wanted a much wider angle view, what I did was I kind of put my wide angle lens, and what you're seeing here is my 20 millimeter from APS-C. So this is a small little pancake lens, and I put it on my full frame camera. It is actually a APS-C sensor lens on a full frame sensor camera, and that's the image that you're getting here. 4K overkill for my overhead shots, but that's how we do here at the Camera Junkie live stream. So that is exactly the perfect illustration for the one mount system, the E-mount system. I'm able to take a lot less inexpensive lens, but because it fits my, my needs, and put it on a full frame camera to get the feed or the camera image that I want. So okay, so Randy's saying, and why I chose Nikon Z mount. Yeah, because it's the same thing. The Nikon Z mount is also a one mount system. Once Sony kind of put that into fruition and people started realizing like, hey, this is very convenient. Well, it's not like they made up the system. So let me digress. Even though Canon has had a variety of different camera systems or camera mounts, they've kind of had this system just the same. Because if you were into photography or anything like me, I would use full frame lenses on my APS-C Canon cameras years ago. And it was just because they had the same mount. The one thing that you had to be careful of is that certain lenses would actually protrude into your reflex mirror area. So not every lens was just capable, because some lenses where they have to place the element is closer to the actual sensor, and if that were for any reason were to be protruding into the space where that mirror was going to be flapping up. As soon as you hit click on your camera, it was going to crash into your lens and break glass inside the space where you have your sensor, and that's a catastrophe. So for many reasons, you would just have to look out into a particular set of nuances. But Canon, you had the ability to use EF or EFS lenses on full frame cameras and vice versa. They just had a variety of different additional lens mounts still available. That's why they couldn't consider themselves the one lens mount. But Sony from the gate has been using E-mount, and they're able to kind of market that verbiage of saying one mount to rule them all, because they've stuck with the same E-mount for both full frame and APS-C, and because of the technology, you can use lenses back and forth. So it really makes it easy. But if Sony were to ever make the day to make a new lens mount, then they cannot, say the same thing anymore. All right. Dutch says, he goes, I love the setup and the different rotations on the camera angles. Thank you. This is all being powered by Ecamm. So if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. I'm even wearing a shirt today. Boom. Ecamm is my preferred program of choice when it comes to hosting my live streams, but not only my live streams, my Zoom meetings, my pre-recorded content. So many different things that I now do completely through Ecamm that I just stay dumbfounded on how much I use it all the time. I was actually having a conversation with Randy because we were thinking that, we were having some screen dimming issues, and we're thinking that it might have to do with something to play while Ecamm is being used. And because I kind of always have Ecamm running in the background, I could be, prevalent to this being affected. So just looking into it. But besides that, I would have to say that Ecamm just runs amazing for what I wanted to do. And one of the most amazing things that it does is, let me see if I can set this up here. Do I have it? Okay, live demo mode. Okay. In live demo mode, you should be able to see what I'm seeing in the background. So now if you're looking, you should see my desktop and what I'm seeing with Ecamm. So one of my favorite things about this is that I have all of these right in this area right here. I have all of these cameras preset, so I just hit it one time and let it go. But the big thing here that I wanted to mention is right here in the audio side. So upper right hand corner, you will see the loop back audio. That's my microphone. That's what's controlling all of my sound and feeding it to the live stream. But then back here we also have sound effects, and because the sound effects is coming in through a separate channel, what that ends up happening is that my Ecamm recording here on my computer will actually record both of those. Okay, so let me just change that. Boom, we should be back to normal. It'll actually take both of those recordings and put them in separate channels. If I were to sit here and hit sound effects, the sound effects will also be on a separate channel. The reason why that is so game changing is for the simple reason, if I also wanted to invite a guest onto my live stream, I can have them come on and the recording is not all mixed in together. It's not like all baked together. Everything is like itemized in my recording folder once I'm done the live stream, once I'm done with the interview, once I'm done with anything that I could be doing through Ecamm, giving me full control of the edit. So here's a simple example. Let's say you were interviewing somebody. I got my audio feed coming in through my microphone, and that's being recorded, but I'm also getting my guest's audio being recorded on a separate channel, the same way that they're giving me a separate connection to the interview. At that moment, right? Let's say they were saying something very important, and because the way that I host my live streams, you could hear Mr. Aiden here in the background. So if he was saying something very important and a point that I really wanted to make sure that came across, but at that same moment Aiden happened to just pull out one of his toys and make like a loud banging noise that doesn't allow you as the audience to hear what my guest said clearly, then I have the ability to go in and actually edit it and remove my audio from that section, because I know that Mr. Aiden, or maybe I coughed or I sneezed or I did something, I banged the microphone, anything that would be like a deterrent to mess up the audio, you have the ability to go back and allow and, you know, edit the audio so that you're not talking over each other, right? Because that's the worst thing, when you have two people talking at the same time and you can't understand either because of the latency that there is through the connection and having to wait. You still have the ability to clear all that up because you have individual isolated tracks for all your audio in Ecamm in your recorded folder once you're done. So these are some of the few but so many amazing features that you have with Ecamm. And like I said, I use it for pretty much everything. At a touch of a button, you can, let's see where we're at. At a touch of a button, you could like turn on and off a variety of different things. Like if anything were to happen, I have the ability to just create this screen and say, I'm gonna be right back, and just let that run, and that will play over any camera that I got, because I have it designed to be shown over all the scenes. So even though I have a folder that's rotating my cameras, if I were to hit my be right back, this is gonna go over all of my scenes to make sure that no matter which camera Ecamm could be displaying, the only feed that you're gonna get is actually from the be right back. So then I click this off and I have the ability to do that. There's so many things that you can do: sound effects, switching scenes, controlling timers, text on screen, everything, every single aspect of what you're seeing on screen right now. The background with the motion overlays, everything is being done and controlled through Ecamm. And the most impressive thing, and let me do this real quick, let me do this because this is actually really impressive. Yeah, right now hosting the live stream, my computer is running at 40%. Like my CPU is running at 40%. I'm sending a 4K live stream out, 30 frames per second, high quality audio at 48 kilohertz bitrate, I believe. So many amazing things that I could talk about this program for another hour, which I'm not gonna do, so I'm gonna leave it there. All right, so let's get back to it. It says all right, and she says yes, she is in Japan, and that is 12, that didn't come up, there we go, at 12:32 on a Sunday. That's so cool, man. Okay, she has a question here saying, what are your thoughts on using the Theta S or the Theta Z 1360 camera for live streaming? I use it for my business, but definitely like multi-purpose my equipment. Okay, let me see if that actually came up. That was the question there. I would have to look into it because I am not familiar with that camera. So I will definitely, if you can, right? This is a good plug for this. One of the things that I've been doing in the last couple of weeks is that I've been rerouting my communication aspect. And one of those things is Discord. So I've been taking some time and learning and putting my efforts into learning this new platform. And what I've realized is that I'm really liking it for communication purposes. So if you would like, or if you can, either send me a message through one of the social medias. If not, I will invite you to my Discord server, and that way you would be able to send me a direct message here. I am going to be putting, like I said, a lot of my efforts towards this because there's so much potential in organization. So let me just give you a brief example. Ever been on Facebook and try to look up a post that you just saw so that you can share it, yet it takes you forever or maybe impossible to find it? That will never happen on Discord. And for little simple things like that is why I'm absolutely loving this program, because there's so much organization built in. You can make it as much or as little as possible. There's ways to communicate via text, chat, right? Direct messages, or voice, and even video calls, just like Zoom. And it's all through the power of Discord, and it's amazing. And the more that I learn of it, the more it just entices me to make sure that I have the Camera Junkie crew in Discord, because I feel that if you are anything like me, you would recognize the benefits of this platform without having the hustle and bustle and headaches of the variety of different platforms. So with that being said, I highly recommend joining the Camera Junkie crew in the Discord community, because that's where I'm going to be putting a lot of my efforts, a lot of my time, and you can find things ahead of time if you like, if you're interested, like today's feature, which I like to call Cities Gaw. Okay, so channels that I think you should go and watch. Cities Gaw. And today's Cities Gaw is none other than Mr. Matthew O'Brien. So let me open that up here. Boom. All right, and let's move over to that window to make sure that we got it going. Boom, there we go. All right, so Matthew O'Brien, his channel name, or the direct link, is Midland Pictures, and that's how I found him. A Final Cut Pro editor, but the dude's name is Matthew, and he changed his channel name to his name, so it's Matthew O'Brien if you were to go to find him. But this guy is a professional video editor. He does that as his business, and also on the side he takes some time to make some YouTube videos so that all of us can learn. And as you can see, he's based around Final Cut Pro, which is my video editor of choice, me using the Mac platform. And he's got a lot of great tips. So he's one of the ones that I mentioned way back when I had Raphael Ludwig, which I believe was my first Cities Gaw, and because of it is why I know that, like, because of the interactions through Raphael and so on and so forth, was how I found him, I think, or I might have found him beforehand, but in the same sense, we're all in communication. You know, I chat with Matt every once in a while on Instagram, just sends us simple messages. But if you're looking to learn more into Final Cut Pro, I highly recommend checking out Mr. Matthew O'Brien in Midland Pictures. A cool dude, and I like the way that he informs about the updates. Really laid back, easygoing. He's got a nice mellow voice, and I like his content. So he is this week's Cities Gaw. So Matthew O'Brien, keep rocking, bro. All right, and that's how that works. So let's go back here, boom, and let's continue with the chat. All right. Question. Referencing my previous question, Ricoh Theta Z1. Okay, the Ricoh, I know that brand. Okay, I will definitely look into that. I like Ricoh cameras for what they are. Like, I don't own any personally, but I really don't see anything wrong with them, and I like the types of bodies that they come up with, but I would have to look at that. The Theta Z1 sounds like you know, a ZV-1 competitor. So I'm interested to see what type of camera that is. All right, so. Okay, we have someone new here. Philip Flores saying, just don't go too wide. Something around 16 or 18 and you'll start seeing lens barrel and APS-C lenses. Yes, and that's if you are adapting them mostly to the full frame that you would see that. But I would have to agree. Yep. Norm is here saying, good evening, how are you doing? Saying, very interesting live stream tonight. Thank you for that, sir. I'm very interested in these new camera bodies that are coming out, and like I always say, if this camera company is, like, let's say you're invested into Nikon, right, and you see this come out from Canon, you shouldn't be too, like, you shouldn't have that feeling of like, oh, I should go to that camera company. I think you should just be more excited, like when my camera company decides to one up them, decides to one up that. Oh wow, D man, thank you very much. I just got a message of a gift sent from Mr. D Marine X. Thank you, bro. I appreciate you, because all gifts that are sent my way, I can't even tell you guys how I still stay in shock, because it's a form of appreciation that, I don't know, it just leaves me almost speechless sometimes, because it's so amazing. I remember the first donation that I got to the channel, and the fact that this is week 77 of the live stream, and it's, even though it's something that's commonplace, I am still so grateful and just still so humbled that anyone would take that extra step and to send me a gift of any manner. So thank you very much. It's highly appreciated. Okay, so it says good night from Oregon. Great info. Cheers. Okay, so it looks like Philip is just heading out. So good night and thanks for stopping by. And we also have someone from the Midwest. Gretchen is here saying hi. You talking Canon? Woohoo! Coming on. Yeah, I'm jumping ship. No, that's exactly what I mean. Like when I see Canon come out with a new camera body, like with specs like this, the only thing that just gets me hyped for is like, I wonder what Sony is gonna come out with next, right? And the fact, and this is just me personally, the fact that Canon is coming out with APS-C cameras, it makes me so happy, for the simple reason that it kind of gives that reasoning for other camera companies to not abandon the APS-C line altogether. And I'm speaking directly to Sony, right? Like, just don't come out with all full frame cameras. Invest a little bit in the APS-C line. Let's get 10-bit color in these videos, or something, or a extremely high frame rate, something. It's possible. I know it's there. But I really think that the next level of APS-C is probably going to be in the bit rate, most likely in 10-bit, which I'm all for it. I can't wait for it. Saying Mrs. Canon in the house. Says Norm, he's saying, Canon, the camera manufacturer should include the lens mount adapter too at no charge. I think that, okay, that didn't show up, but this is Norm's comment. At no charge. But they want people to buy new lenses in a major source of income from them. Yeah, mentioned before, Canon literally says we're not a camera company, we're a lens company who makes cameras for our lenses. So if you look at it that way, absolutely. But I agree with you. I think that adapter should have been, or maybe just a feature, right? Like a bundle, because you can buy the camera bodies by themselves, but then you can bundle them in with a lens. But if at the same way you can sell the camera body by itself, I think that maybe you should have added that adapter with the body only models, and then had the other one with a lens, with it. But I agree with you. They're just trying to make sure that they get another sale on a new lens. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, we have another question saying, I see that you're using the Mac Studio. Would you please share your recommendations on the specs? Oh, I will absolutely do that, sir. What I did with my Mac Studio as soon as I got it, let me try to break down this story real quick for you. I was already in the market for a new camera when this was announced. The camera that I had in my bag on the Apple Store was the MacBook Pro 14-inch with the Mac or the M1 Pro chip processor, the base level, right? And bumped it up from 16 gigs of RAM to start to 32 gigs, and that was basically around $2,600 as far as the specs that I had applied. Oh, excuse me, and with an upgraded hard disk drive from 512 to the 1 terabyte. So those specs were there, and that's what I had in my cart. That's what I was going to buy. If you see here, just right here, this is my Mac Mini. So from the Mac Studio was the upgrade from the Mac Mini, and what I was gonna upgrade the Mac Mini was the laptop that I had just mentioned to you with those particular specs. So when the announcement came out for the Mac Studio, and I'm watching it live, and they're announcing this new chip, the Ultra chip, right? And it's two fused in together with all this crazy. I just stood there and I was like, oh, okay, that is so overkill, because I understood that adequate for what I wanted to get out of my work was the M1 Pro chip. What would have been ideal was the M1 Max chip, but that quickly took these laptops from, you know, my budget of $2,600 to $3,000, getting to $4,000 plus. So when they announced the Max chip starting at $4,000, like, I automatically knew right off the bat, this is not the chip that I need. Even though I needed my upgrade from my M1 for my workflow and for what I needed in the edits, I did not need all of that. I knew where the specs would be best utilized for me. So now, what I use it for: Final Cut Pro, photo editing, and live streaming. The extra I/O here definitely helps out with adding the extra cameras that allow the rotation, the overhead, so on and so forth, because I have plenty of connections for it. Tell you the truth, I still have a couple of connections available, you know, if I wanted to plug in anything USB or USB-C right here in front of me, with having all of these different devices connected to it at the same time. So with that, what I did is that as soon as they said the Mac Studio is going to be available with the M1 Max chip starting at $19.99, my eyes got super big, and I was like, now you have my attention, because I knew that I was not even going to be able to have in my budget, even though the Max chip was completely overkill. And I literally mean, it's actually completely overkill for a lot of people's needs right now, that some of the people that got it, right, are upset because there's no program that can utilize all of the power, because there's so much power there. Yet, you know, it's like having a Bugatti Veyron but stuck in a school zone, because even though you have the power, but you're only limited to 15 miles per hour. So that's how they feel about spending $4,000, $6,000, or even $8,000 on an M1 Studio Ultra, right? And not being able to get it past that school zone. I digress. So what I did was I took the base model, so it's the M1 or the Mac Studio M1 Max, 10-core CPU, 20-core GPU, like the base model one, and it started with 32 gigs of RAM, so I doubled that, and I went to 64 gigs because I knew that that's what I needed for what I want. So when it comes to video editing on any of the NLEs, you know, like whether you're using DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro, Premiere, whatever, whichever editor that you're using, when you start adding video files and layers on top of layers with special effects and things moving around, that's when you're going to really dig into your RAM. And I knew that my workflow was very like memory heavy, and the things that I'm looking to progress in 3D animation was also gonna ask or like require even more of the like system memory, the RAM memory, than hard drive space. So I knew what I needed, so I was able to put the specs into upgrading the memory. So I got the M1 Max. No, yeah. I'm trying to, so many variations. So it goes M1, M1 Pro, M1 Max, and M1 Ultra. So I got the M1 Max into the studio, which is the base for the studio. I upgraded the hard drive the same way from 512 to 1 terabyte, and that's just to get more space for the actual programs, not so much for the files that I'm going to be working on, and I understood that. So I use Final Cut Pro, and I wanted to have more space to apply more plugins, more, you know, things that are gonna allow my video files, my creation, my content creation to be even that much better. So having the space there to apply more programs to the actual computer was why I wanted to upgrade that aspect. And all of my work, let me go to that. Thank you, Paul, for that. All right, so you guys didn't hear any of that. I will restate it. All right. What's happening here is that underneath my Mac Studio, I have this Hagibis hard drive USB connection. So it allows from one Thunderbolt in the back to be connected to this multi-port connection, and inside of it is also a 2 terabyte SSD hard drive. So now I have 1 terabyte on my physical machine, and then connected underneath via the Hagibis drive, I have an additional 2 terabytes. Right here off to the right, I have an M.2 SSD in an enclosure connected directly to my Thunderbolt port in the back as well, with another additional 2 terabytes of hard drive now of space. These run adequately fast that I am editing my videos directly from these drives, so none of my video files are held onto the actual computer. But what I do have here is the space for all of the plugins and the programs that I use themselves. So my small little system here, this computer, the Hagibis drive, and this small drive right there to the next of it is a 5 terabyte system, Mac Studio M1 Max, with 64 gigs of onboard memory and 1 terabyte hard drive with 4 terabytes of additional hard drive space included. All in this little space right here. That's what's like so mind-boggling when I would think about a 5 terabyte system that can do what this thing does would be taking up all of the space. And ask Randy for for all of the ones that for all of the Windows machines and the sizes and how extraordinarily large they can get. So hopefully that's a nice little breakdown. Okay, we just broke down the hour, so let's see. Gretchen saying 77. Yeah, 77. Wow, 77 live streams, right? I just think about it, I'm like, we're 3 away from 80, which is such a huge number. There's D. Said, we do appreciate you, man. I really do call out for that advice that helped me navigate away from the A5000. I think those things help my channel grow. Hey, man, I appreciate you so much. Like I mentioned before, it's so dope, and I'm always happy to help. You know, I'm glad that I'm able to provide enough, value to help you make a better decision, and you're killing it, bro. Your channel's doing awesome. Kali's here. Chocolate Twist Yoga. How are you doing, Kali? I was expecting to see you on India's stream, but I guess it was rescheduled, so we'll be waiting on that. So, oh, so you see, he agrees with me. I will love 10-bit in APS-C, mainly filming with my FX3 in 16-bit RAW with the Atomos Ninja V. It's hard to justify my A6600 as a B cam because it's hard to push and pull the colors. Oh, wow. But yeah, dude, if you went 16-bit with the Atomos Ninja, that is a whole nother ball game. So most people wouldn't even understand what that is. Oh man, Omar, sir, I appreciate you so much. He just also sent a gift over through the Cash App. Like I said, that just leaves me speechless. You know, thank you, because it just lets me know that what I'm doing here is worthwhile, you know, and it's just amazing. It really does help me and the channel continue to do this. And if you notice, like I mentioned, this is episode number 77 weeks consecutive, which is amazing because I tell you all that this is the place where I want to be. This is Club Camera Junkie, and there's no other place that I'd rather be than last night. Says, we lost your audio when you said that you switched from that camera angle. Okay, yes, we got to that. So, but thank you to Paul. He sent me the message, and that worked flawlessly, Paul. Just to let you know, I got the message through Discord way before I saw anything in chat. So that's a 1-up plus for Discord as well. Because you see, through this same communication platform that I was mentioning before, I have my moderators able to send me direct messages, allowing me to shut off my phone so that that doesn't distract me, and it just keeps the live stream flowing. So once again, thank you. That worked perfect. Like, that really worked perfect. All right, we have a question here. It says, like the command station look of your setup, however, have you considered snagging a large Husky workbench table similar to Caleb Pike? I have. There's just one difference when it comes to everyone else's setup and mine, which is space limitation. I really don't have the extra space. So right now, this is the max that I can get. And if you see the overhead shot, I am literally here to my wall. Because what I would love to have, right, is a little distance between my wall and my microphone because of the reverberation. My voice hits this wall and bounces right back and hits the microphone, creating slap back. You know, this isn't the best treated room. I do the best, but if there was any form of space behind, like the 6 inches here behind my camera, I would have even that much better audio. So just little things like that. So I have considered it, or even making a movable bench, but because of my situation and the way that I have to maximize the limited space that I have here, this is the best that I can get for the time being. But those are things that I definitely have in mind, because Caleb Pike is someone that I feel like we have a lot of similarities when it comes to creating these things. Like, I'm able to hang, like, yeah, let's bring it back. Let me see the overhead. Am I muted here? No, I shouldn't be. Okay. Right here, I'm gonna take down this light so that you can see just a little bit of how I actually have my setup. So what you're seeing here is my A6100 with a monitor. Let's see if we can throw some light on there. Okay, so my A6100, right, and it's actually being hung off of the top of my frame. So this bar here is holding the camera, the lens is here holding the teleprompter. I have another articulating arm coming from the bottom of my camera holding up the monitor to give the reflection onto the teleprompter so that I can see the comments on there. And that's kind of like shaky, you know, and if I bump this, I would have it, but this is just to show you. That's my wall right there. There's no give. And then I lock that into place to be my fill light. And then that brings it right back here, filling in this light, giving me the ability to see everything in chat right on my teleprompter. So my biggest issue is space, right? Limitation. So I'm making the most of the limited space that I have, but don't take it lightly, man. I absolutely pay attention to all those things, creating like those little cages, or just being more modular. Like, another person who I will mention just to finalize on that question is also Josh Yo. Josh Yo said something a while ago that I heard him say. He was quoting somebody, so I digress. I don't remember who he was quoting, but he said, if it can be put on wheels, it should be. And that's such an amazing mind concept. Like, if anything could be put on casters and on wheels, it should be. And it makes such a huge difference. If I had the ability to move things around, just on the fly, and he's able to get a variety of different setups just because of the fact that he's able to just change his desk and roll it around 360 to give you a completely different angle. So, okay. All right. So, okay. So it looks like that's where we're at the end of our chat. That was one of the last questions. And, yep. Paul was saying, if you do want to support, you can hit the QR code. It's highly appreciated. I do thank everyone who has donated to the Camera Junkie cause. You guys are amazing. I sit here because it's something that you really don't have to do, and the fact that you go out of your way to do it, it leaves me speechless, and I can't be grateful enough. I'm super grateful, super thankful. And as always, I am thankful for all of you taking the time and hanging out here with me once again on another Camera Junkie live stream. This has been week number 77, another successful live stream, and I can't wait to do it all over again. So if you haven't done it already, make sure that you mark it down on your calendar. Saturday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern, you know where to be. The one place, the Camera Junkie live stream. Everyone, you guys are the best. I appreciate you so much. I love talking cameras and ideas and getting everything. I love providing value to you guys. We were just talking to Mr. Marine X here, Dion. Just say that I was able to provide value to give him a new vision of a new path of how to take just with his gear that he feels has made him, better content creator. There's no better compliment than that. And that's maybe just to me, but the fact that I was able to help someone out or inspire someone to do something is the best. So, as always, thank you all for being incredible. Thank you for taking the time and hanging out with me here, Club Camera Junkie. We're going to be doing it all over again next Saturday, 11 o'clock, and I can't wait to see you here. So, with that being said, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next time.